Yo, what is up guys? It's Pedro here, and in today's video I will be going over 5 free agents that I think the Washington Commanders should sign in free agency. So if you guys are new, make sure to subscribe for Washington and NFL content. I'm close to 7,500 subscribers, so please help me get there. Also, hit that like button and turn on those notifications so you never miss a video, and go ahead and follow my Twitter, trying to get to 1,000 followers on there. Now, let's get right into the video. Okay, so we are about 2 weeks into free agency, and there are still a lot of good free agents out there that the Washington Commanders could go ahead and sign. Washington has about $12.6 million in cap space, but that is not counting the Cornelius Lucas deal and the F.A. Obata deal that Washington, they finalized both of those deals this week. So Washington hasn't made a ton of moves, mostly re-signing their own guys: J.D. McKissic, Cam Sims, Cornelius Lucas, Bobby McCain, Joey Sly, some guys like that. And the only 2 free agents that they signed, outside free agents, were Andrew Norwell, who I think was a great signing because they got him for pretty cheap. I think the cap hit this year is like $2.5 million, and F.A. Obata. Of course, both former Carolina Panthers players, but they still have time, and there's a lot of good quality free agents out there that they can still sign. So we're going to be going over some of them in today's video. So the first guy, I talked about him in last week's video, but it is Akiem Hicks, because we still need depth at that interior defensive line position. We added a little bit of depth at the D line in F.A. Obata this past week, but he's more of an edge guy. He can switch inside for some plays, but he's majority of the time he's playing out there on the edge. So we still need an interior guy, and maybe Washington will go out and sign, go ahead and sign former Panther and Bill defensive tackle star Lutulelli. But I think Akiem Hicks would be a better option. He's been pretty good for the last few years as an interior guy. In 2020, had 3.5 sacks in 15 games. This past year was, had some injuries, but still in 9 games, 3.5 sacks as an interior guy. That's pretty good. He's pretty good against the run as well. And you see some years he's gotten, 8.5, 7.5 sacks. So he is definitely a guy that Washington should target. Probably the best, or one of the top 3 remaining interior defensive linemen. And of course, that's a position need, because we do have Jonathan Allen and we have Daron Payne, which is great, but we need someone there who can rotate. And maybe he wants to go to a team where he can start, but we've been rotating our guys. Payne and Allen play the majority of the time, but sometimes they're only playing 60% of the snaps. So there's still room for Akiem Hicks to play some snaps, significant amount of snaps, even if he's going to be behind Jonathan Allen and Daron Payne. And it might let him, have a better quality of snaps. Instead of having to play all the snaps like he's been doing, he'll play a little bit less, but he'll be, fully charged up and ready to go for each of those snaps. I don't think it'll cost a lot of money, but I do think it would be a signing that Washington, they should try to, get an interior guy on defense, and Akiem Hicks should be on the top of their list. Next guy, I've been talking about him for a while. He's been my guy for a while. Alexander Johnson, inside linebacker. He usually plays in the 3-4, but of course these players are flexible. He can play in the 4-3. Played for the Broncos this past year. Isn't going to cost too much. I mean, this tweet's right here saying kind of $7 to $8 mil per year, but at this point it might be less than that, because we're kind of in that second to third wave of free agency, probably the second wave. So it's probably going to be $5-ish mil. And yeah, players can still get paid a ton in the second wave of free agency, but someone like Alexander Johnson probably won't get paid more than $7 million. So I think would be a good guy to target, and he's the 3rd highest graded inside linebacker in 2019 and 2021, according to PFF. You look at his advanced stats, they are very, very good. This past year, again, small sample size, only played in 6 games, but allowed a 38.9% completion percentage and a 69.7% pass rating, which is really good. Anything under 90 for quarterbacks is not good, so allowing anything under that is very good. And his missed tackling percentage, small sample size again, but 0%. You look at the year before, 5%, and the year before, 8%. Anything under 10% is pretty good. 5% is extremely good, especially for linebackers And, the coverage isn't always great. He allowed an 81% completion percentage in 2019, and that's not great, of course. But, linebackers usually allow a little higher than other positions because it's a lot, shorter passes. But, you look at the pass rating, he allowed around 80, so still not bad. So, he's not amazing in coverage. He's okay in coverage. Great run stopper and a great tackler, and he can be that veteran middle linebacker that you need. You can get him for relatively cheap, and can get to the quarterback too. I mean, you look at the last 3 years, he has 4.5 sacks, so he can get to the QB. And I think Washington should try to sign him. He was like going into free agency, he was my number one target because I realized we didn't have much cap space. But even with the cap space we have right now, I think we can sign him, and I think we should definitely try to sign Alexander Johnson. So the next guy on my list is Darrell Williams, and I know people are going to get upset because yes, he was a former Carolina Panthers and of course also a former Buffalo Bill, but I do think he fits what Washington is trying to do and fits at least somewhat a position of need. So he's a guard slash tackles, played tackle a lot in his career, also plays guard, so he has, of course, that position flex that Ron Rivera absolutely loves. About 6'6", 330 pounds, around 30 years old. So not super old, but, not really a guy that you want for a long period of time. And, this past season, he played over 1,000 snaps, which was 5th most in the league, allowed 4 sacks and 6 penalties. So not great numbers, but considering the amount of snaps he had, he was solid, for the Bills and had an okay PFF grade. Again, you have to take everything from PFF with a grain of salt because some things are crazy, but this is a solid grade. Anything, 65 or up is okay. And, he's not going to be starting for us. Maybe they'll put him in to compete with Wes Schweitzer for a starting job. Maybe they'll do that. And if he's not able to win that starting job, then you have a great backup guard and backup tackle, similar to what you have in Sadiq Charles. That's why I think I would not mind this signing at all, because he can play guard, tackle, he can start for you, and if he loses that battle to Wes Schweitzer, that's fine, and you can have him as the backup guard, the next guy up, and if Cornelius Lucas goes in and he gets hurt or something, then you have another backup tackle as well. So I think he would definitely be a good signing, and he of course has the familiarity with Ron Rivera and John Matsko and Andrew Norwell as well, I believe. So that would be a benefit right there, and you can get him, I would assume, for a relatively cheap price. Next guy on this list is Melvin Ingram, and I know people might look at the numbers and say, man, he didn't have a good year this past year. He only had we'll look at the numbers before we go to PFF. He had 2 sacks this past season for the Chiefs and for the Steelers, got traded mid-year, and those numbers might not look great, but if you watch the games, when I was watching, you could tell so many times he's getting in the quarterback's face, getting some pressure on him, and just changing the game. And he's not going to be an elite guy, he's not going to start for us, but he's exactly what I think the Washington Commanders need: a good, solid depth piece on the defensive line as an edge rusher, and not only a depth piece, but a guy that's a veteran, a guy that can help Chase Young and Montez Sweat kind of develop as pass rushers, help them with their approach, help them with just everything in general. You look at his PFF grade, he has an 80 PFF grade, pretty much close to that. So that is very, very good. Again, take it with a grain of salt, but I still think Melvin Ingram can play. You look at his prime of his career, he was a baller, 10.5 sacks, 8 sacks. He had 3 really good years there, and a couple years after that where he was solid as well. So I think bringing him in for cheap as a veteran edge rusher who can come in there in spurts and help you, but also help those edge rushers develop. That's almost as important as what he can do on the field as well. So Melvin Ingram is one of the top guys, and he plays a position in need too. You can get him for relatively cheap, and who knows, maybe he won't want to sign here because he knows he won't get a ton of playing time, but at the same time, he would be the number 1 guy coming off the bench. So once, if Sweat has to go out or Chase, Melvin Ingram is that next guy up. So I definitely would not mind him. So the next guy, I was debating between putting a tight end here and a running back, and there just weren't really any good tight ends available. I think tight end right now is a bigger need than running back, but they're still saying, like Ben Standig is saying, like they still will likely add a running back, and I think it'll be more in the draft. But if they do decide to get one in free agency, I really like what Darrell Williams can bring to the table. This past year for the Chiefs, played in 17 games, had 560 rushing yards, almost 4 yards per carry, 6 touchdowns. I mean, his yards per carry numbers aren't that great, so a little bit concerning, but I do think that is a little bit of a misleading stat. But he's a very, very good pass catcher, 47 catches, 450 yards, and 2 touchdowns. So we did get J.D. McKissic back, so it's not a huge need, but he would be a good guy to have as that third back. If Gibson goes down, he can take over the workload and let McKissic be truly a third down back, because we saw in 2020 when Gibson went down, McKissic came in and took some of the carries, but he couldn't really be himself in terms of being that third down back. But we just need some insurance if Antonio Gibson goes down, or even if McKissic goes down. Like if McKissic goes down, Darrell Williams is a very capable third down back, and he could really come in and help. And this is another situation where he might want to come in where he's that first or second running back. He probably won't go anywhere where he's a first running back, but definitely he will likely go to somewhere where he's a second running back, and he won't be that here. And also, I mean, the Chiefs just traded Tyreek Hill, so they cleared up some cap space, so they're probably going to be able to re-sign Darrell Williams, same name as the other guy I was talking about, but just different positions. But I think he would be a guy we could target. But I think a better situation is targeting a guy in the draft, in that late round, 6th, 7th round. We have 2 7th-round picks. Go ahead and take a flyer on a running back, see what he can do. And, because there's a lot of good running backs that, get drafted late, very, very late, and they're day one impact players. So throw a dart, take a running back in the 7th, see what he can do versus, getting a veteran. That's what I would do. But either way, I think they can add a running back. But tight end is a bigger position need. It just doesn't look like there's many free agents available. Tight end free agents, they're all off the board. Washington missed their chance. Austin Hooper, Gerald Everett, kind of low-key signings that we could have went after. But we decided to not do it. Maybe we have a plan. We will see. So, yeah, and, Darrell Williams and Melvin Ingram, Chiefs fans love them. They really want him back. So that's, saying something about those two players. So thank you guys for watching. I hope you guys did enjoy the video. If you did, please hit that like button, subscribe if you guys are new, and turn on those notifications so you never miss a video. Peace, guys.